Hello, everybody. This is Jimmy, and welcome back to Jimmy Does Knitting. This is my knitting podcast where we pick a topic and we go from there. Today is a very special video because we are going over my Prada sweater that I've been talking about recreating for years, and I finally cast it on. So, this is going to be a whole process, the nuts and bolts. I'll have different chapters, so if you're interested in particular things, you can do that. There's going to be lots of color. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to this, and I'm very excited. Before we do that, though, it is March 19th of 2025, so you'll get regular updates. But you can find me as Jimmy Does Knitting on Ko-Fi if you'd like to help support this channel. Ravelry, I have a user profile, but I also sell designs, and I am on Instagram and YouTube, of course, as Jimmy Does Knitting. So, without further ado, let's get started. I have notes and I have a bucket, one of those IKEA cubes full of crap that we're going to discuss. I'm trying to go fast through it, and I will also have visuals here. So, I'm obsessed with this one sweater. I have a list on my phone of like things to knit, and it was the third one down on the list. So it's been there for a while. And what I wanted to do was just make a version for myself. I think it would be fun, entertaining, beautiful to have as like a collector's piece. I probably wouldn't wear it a whole lot, but like it's a challenge. It's a bucket list sort of thing. And this year I'm putting it in with the Sibling Energy Bucket List Cal. So this is my entry, but it's also, I try to do like one bucket list knit a year. So this is the picture of the sweater in question. So how I've started this is I've just looked at it. It is a pretty simple construction, and I'm going to use the same construction. It is a raglan. It doesn't look like it has anything fancy. The color work is fancy. And it looks like it's pieced. And it's pieced because it's done in intarsia. And intarsia is a technique where you essentially knit one color, twist it over another color, knit that color, twist it, knit, twist. And so doing that in the round is just a pain in the butt. So it is knit flat is the easiest way. I have just finished my Metaphysics Intarsia pattern, which will be released in August. And I needed another Intarsia on my needles. So that's the order of how this came in. So raglan, intarsia, bottom up. To help me with this, I have this book that I bought when I first started designing. It's The Ultimate Sweater Work by Amy Herzog. This is what it looks like in the right way. And this is really good. It has, everything is knit flat in this, which I didn't realize when I bought it. Not that knitting flat is wrong or bad. It's really informative about different sweater types and how to do math and stuff. But that's just how she does it. So what's good about this book is it has rough numbers for different sized things. So I think I'm just going to take their basic raglan pattern, put in my gauge, adjust to my numbers, and then go from there. So my gauge, roughly DK weight yarn on 3.5 millimeter needles is 20 stitches per 4 inches or 10 centimeters. And my numbers, when I say my numbers, I usually like a yoke depth of 10 inches and a body depth of 16, and then the sleeves. So that's what I'm going off of when it comes to this. So I can use these as rough numbers. I'll have to modify slightly, but it will get me there. So this is how I'm constructing, but I could also just do the math. In the pattern, you can see I got really good pictures on Pinterest. I got a couple of them where you can really zoom in on it. Now, the one on the runway I know is knit on a knitting machine because I've seen a video on YouTube that one of you viewers pointed me to, so thank you. But the commercial one that they actually sell is knit on like not a hand-bed knitting machine, but like a knitting machine program, so they can produce those a bit faster. But it appears to be a worsted weight yarn, and that's great, and it helps me see the stitch definition in terms of like how it was constructed with like rows and pattern, I guess. And then I can also count the width. So based on the width of the stripes, it was roughly 2.5 inches per stripe-ish, 2.25, I think. And so what I did is I could get more colors in a DK weight gauge. So I wanted the same width. And I figured out, like I said, that instead of 4 stitches per inch, it's 5 stitches per inch. Did some math. And we're going to have the same width of the stripes. Except for one. There's one like wonky one on the picture that's like smaller and narrower, and it like interrupts the pattern in a way that I don't like. So I just made that wider in my chart, which you will see and what I'm doing. So it has a good rhythm. It's 13 stitch blocks that I'm going to use because with the worsted to DK, that's about right. Why did I use DK? I think that I know I can get more colors and a better color selection with the DK than the worsted. So that's what drove that decision. It was purely color and availability, not necessarily yarn weight. I don't really care if it's a DK or worsted. If I'm 100% honest, I just want the look. So that is what I decided with that. Color. What are we doing with color? I'm changing it. I thought maybe I wanted to keep it the way it was, but then I decided I don't. I'm a blue guy. I've also recently found out that I look good in green. So if I'm using color, I prefer like a blue-green-ish. So that is what I'm going for, and I will pick yarns accordingly. So everything will coordinate. It won't be like a 1-for-1 switch because I've already done the chart and just the colors I have and how they coordinate. It's a little bit different, but we're sticking to like blue, green, purple with like one yellow. So that is an executive decision I made about color, is not to reproduce it exactly. In terms of yarn, let's go into the box. If I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't pay for any of this yarn. I had a gift certificate to Stephen and Penelope, and then also I was gifted some of this yarn. And I don't remember what all the colors are offhand. But what I have decided because of this availability of this yarn is that I would go with, I think I have one skein that's not wound. Let me find it. With West Wool Tandem. This is their DK Way yarn. It's by Stephen and Penelope. This specifically is the color glass. I've used it before. It's 100% South American wool, merino. It says needle size 3.5 to 4.5 millimeters, which is a US 4 to 7. I'm using a 3.5 millimeter in this project because I like the DK on that gauge, plus I'm a bit loose. It says the gauge roughly is 22 stitches and 28 rows. I'm getting about 20 to 30 or 20 stitches for 32 rows. And then it says use the needle size that results in the desired gauge, hand wash in cool water. Okay. And it's 233 meters, 254 yards per 100 grams. So this is the yarn that I'm using, and I'm using it in 15 different colors. So let's just pick out stuff and see if I can remember the name. This one is called Brackish. This one is Royal. This is Aquamarine. This is a light gray. It's called Pebble. A dark gray. This is called French gray. This green, it is grass green. This is Fandango. This is the other purple. This is called Unicorn. No, this is olive green. And then this is Avocado. Blue spruce. We have Dijon, which is this like beautiful ochre color. We have Midnight, which is a very dark navy, which I think is really nice. I have the glass, which is just like a beautiful light blue. And then the last one that I have is pickle juice. And this is like, sometimes it reads as yellow, but it's like a really vibrant, like greeny yellow. So in 1,000 different words, that's my color palette. I had a couple of more that I got and were used for those, but I decided that those 15 colors were the color palette that I wanted to do. I was really trying to get it like tonal at first, but then when I lay these all out, I think it's really beautiful. And the color adjacencies really play well with each other. I think one good thing about Westwool is they have a lot of different colors, and like that's really the selling point for me. It's a nice wool, but I mean that Fandango and like the pickle juice and like the royal, the deep, like they just have like a beautiful color selection. So that's really like what I was after. So this is like unofficially done with Westwool, sponsored by Westwool. I even went to Stephen and Penelope and had like an appointment to pick out colors, and like we were discussing and we were doing all this stuff. So it was really nice. It was a great experience, and that is what started everything. I wanted to show you the chart that I made. You can see on the left is the picture of the sweater. This is from Pinterest, and it's like the commercial version of the sweater. It's not the one that went down the runway, but it's close. But you can see the stitches in it pretty well. And so with that, I did some calculations as discussed, and I came up with this chart. Now this is a little bit of playing around with the colors that I had and sort of the tones that this comes with, I guess. I'm using a program called Stitch Mastery. This is a paid for program, but I know that there are non-paid for programs. And I think that with my colors, this is pretty much what we can expect. Now, I do think that these might be a little shorter than these. I think that this might have like more height to it, but I really like the proportion of this chart. I mean, the squares are square, and we all know a stitch is not square, but I think this is going to be all right, and things line up, and it has a good color distribution, so I think that we're good to go for this. And how I did this was I just sort of like filled in like these four and aligned it the way that I thought it needed to be, and then these four right here are essentially the first floor for mirrored and flipped. So that way it's a little bit better. What I ended up doing was the grays and the greens, the really greens are gonna go together. Everything else is sort of bluish, and then on the sides you have a little bit more dramatic panels that don't necessarily fit that well into the color scheme, as like these coordinate much better. And then I wanted the white to be this purple, the red to be this purple, and sort of picked things from there. So that is what I went with. I mean, this color partially is because this is one of the colors that I have the most of, so that's where I got that from. But yeah, so this is the chart that I am going to be using. So this previous weekend, I swatched, and this is my proof of concept swatch / gauge swatch. I just picked 3 random colors. This is not the color, it is the color palette, but it's not the color order that I'm going in. I just had the most of these colors, so those are the ones that I used, and they were all wound up. So this is my swatch. It gives me the width that I want and sort of the proportions that I think are nice. So that's what we were going for. This is the Midnight Dijon Glass and Pickle Juice. And then last night I cast on, and it was very exciting. Now, I did a provisional cast on, and what that is just like take some scrap yarn. I used a bright yellow that was a contrast color, and I did a crochet provisional cast on, which you can do provisional cast ons like 1,000 different ways. The easiest for me is a long tail, but I like the crochet one because what that allows you to do is just pull it out. It's just like the easiest to pull it out. If you do like a long tail or a knit cast on, quite often you have to pick those out, and it just takes more time. So the crochet one's not much longer, and it works. So I cast on with that, because I also don't know what color I want to do the ribbon. I need to see this thing. I have it charted out clearly, but those are not the colors. And so I just need to see it made a bit, and then I can start picking the ribbon color, because I think that I just want to do like cuffs, hem, and then collar all in the same color. According to like the visual image of the original one, it would all be in that light purple, the unicorn color, but I'm not sold on that. I think it will be like, what color do I want to play up most? So it will probably be a blue. Maybe not. I'm not sure. So there was a provisional cast on because of that, and then I started knitting. So you can't really see this, and I'm going to try to go forward. I am clearly an intarsia mess because it's all just bouncing around in here, but I finished the first sort of like triangle section, and I'm into some of the other stuff. Now, when I'm doing an intarsia, I'm doing it with two different sort of techniques. One is the bobbins, which you can clearly see are a big tangled mess, but they're really not that hard. This actually does help make things a lot easier and smoother. Are my bobbins too long? Probably, but it seems to be working for me. I did a workshop with Nancy Marchant, and she gave us two types to try, and I went and I bought some more because it was really good. I've done intarsia before, and you can also just like, grab some, leave a length, and then just sort of like knit and then untangle as you go. But I find the bobbins actually to be a little bit more, they're faster because I don't have to untangle as much. And these are the two types. So this one looks like a little fish, and I think that this works really well. I bought some by accident, they were like double the size of this, so it wasn't really good. But I think this is really good. And then these plastic ones, which I hate using plastic, but these are really good because they're solid, and the yarn can really fit in, maybe I can do it like this. The yarn can really fit in this like part right here. And then it doesn't like slide out. So if you use regular embroidery bobbins, you can, it's fine, but they just like, they just like untangle by themselves. Also with bobbins, I find that I can put a lot more yarn on than if I were to just like get a couple of arms lengths, because after too much it just gets too tangled. Bobbins, that's what I'm using. And then but for like smaller amounts, if it's just like one arm's worth of yarn, then I'm not doing anything. So I think that like the purple on here, I didn't put on bobbins, I didn't bother, but otherwise I just load up the bobbins with a ton of yarn and I put them on. So that is where we are for now. This is one day's worth of work. You can't really see it because it's very messed up and also curling. But yeah, so I'm excited about this. This is going to take a while. I don't know how often I will come back, but I guess we'll find out. So, thank you for listening to me ramble, and I will be back soon. All right, kids, it is April 10th, and I have done some stuff. We're at a good point to show this off. So, I have finished the first chart repeat, and this is what it looks like. The sides are kind of curling in, but can you see this all? This is what we have. This is nice because the only color that's on the needles right now is the light purple, so it's nice. The back looks like this. I can start weaving in my ends, I think, but I think I'm going to do it after I finish the back piece. I still have not decided on a ribbing color, and I think maybe I can play with that a little bit now, but I'm not really quite sure. But the real reason why I wanted to show up now is because I had to do some math. The problem is I did not know how to do the math that I wanted, because the shoulder on the original is quite broad, and the way that a bottom-up raglan for me makes sense didn't really jive with that. So I got some extra West wool that I had. I have like literally 3 kilos of West wool. It's insane. So that's like 30 skeins of West wool. And I just took some of the color that I'm going to use the least, and I made a little swatch. So I did all the math. I figured it out. I knit 4 different pieces. I blocked them, and then I put them together. So let's put this on. Isn't this cute? So The answer is math is pretty spot on. The only thing that I'm going to change is this collar decrease, because you can see I did it like a drop shoulder collar where it goes down and then it goes, but I think with the raglan I need it to be gradual. So from here it will gradually slope out and then we'll have a nice collar. So what was stressing me out about this math was the decrease rate. So I've started a little bit. You can tell, not on this side. Which side is it? This side has some markers. So honestly, I'm decreasing every other row is what it ended up being, which is quite nice because that's super easy. So on the front, it's going to be every other row, and on the sleeves, it's every fourth row, which is pretty consistent. And then hopefully my math will be okay. I think if it's off, it's like a row or two off. So that is good. What I have done is I bound off 5 stitches, which is just sort of an arbitrary number. It's about an inch. So I'll have a 2-inch cast off for the underarm here, which is all right. I don't know. It's whatever. The book I used wasn't tremendously helpful. It was a little bit helpful, not tremendously helpful. I had to really do a lot of math. So what I did is, so my body length, this is 13.5 inches because I like a 16-inch body, and a 2.5-inch 1x1 rib is coming in later after I take this cast off. So I took off 5 stitches each side for the underarm, and then I'm going to decrease every other row until I get to the length I want, which is a total length of 26 inches, which I think is like 37 decreases. I'm not publishing this pattern, so that's why I'm giving you the numbers. So 37 decreases every other row, and that should give me the right amount. And that will be good for the back, and then that gives the slope. So what I needed to do then is figure out, I want the front to be 1.5 inches lower than the back, because that's usually my preference with the difference in size. So I needed the front, so we went back, we're following the same amount of decreases, so it's the same, but this will stop 1.5 inches lower, and then I needed to figure out where the collar starts and what the decrease rate for that was. So I've done that wrong in this, but I've fixed it. So this part, when I knit the front, will be 1.5 inches less tall than the back, and I have the whatever number of decreases that is based on my row gauge. So there's that. And so what that means is the shoulder part needed to be 1.5 inches lower on this side than on this side. So if I take this off, you can see a little bit. This is the shoulder piece, and you can see it slants. And so what was the decrease rate to get the 1.5 inches slope while still doing it? And then it's like, how big was this, and was my neck going to match up with it and not be like really crazy? And the answer is my decreases were a bit crazy, but it ended up working with some light modifications. I hope that made sense. That was a very simple way of stating what I spent probably an entire day on one Sunday. And then ended up, I'm really glad that I knit up the sample in some wool that's the same gauge, so I didn't have to worry about, unpicking and figuring out stuff, because there was some trial and error with this. I only ended up knitting one swatch of each, but the math, I had to revise a couple times and sit on it, and then revise and sit on it. So anyway, that's a long way to say I've done basically the math of the entire pattern now, and I've figured out one repeat, which I'm quite happy with. So the rest is just knitting, weaving in ends, and I need to pick a bind off color. So we will, not bind off, ribbing color. So I will come back to you probably with some ribbing chat and a finished back. All right, we are at an exciting point. We need to choose a ribbing color. Spoiler alert, I've already chosen it, but let's talk through things. And it's April 18th. So that's where we are on the timeline. Am I going to get this done by May 10th? Probably not, but let's look at it. I have finished knitting the back so far, and I still have not picked a ribbing color, and I still have not woven in my ends. So that's where I am right now, but you can see the back, and I'm glad that I put the ribbing till last because I was unsure of the color and how this would knit up. So my chart obviously is not all of these exact colors, and it's also a full chart. So when I were to knit it up, obviously some colors are going to pop in different ways than others because it's shaped. Specifically, if you look at like these sections, there's one on each side of these almost contrast sections that are a little different. Those are not very prevalent, and you get a lot of this center motif, which is the gray and the green. So I've had a lot of questions on my Instagram about how do I pick these colors? How did it go? Like all these sort of things. So what I want to do is a color comparison with the original, which is why this is so blank. And then I also want to talk about the ribbing and what that means and what I want to achieve with it and stuff like that. So how did I come up with these colors? I was given these colors by West Wool, and I asked for basically all of their blues and greens. I also asked for their purples because I knew that I wanted it to be the accent color, and then the gray part I wanted to maintain, so I asked for that. So overall I had like 22 or 23 different colors to choose from, and I chose 15 colors to do this. What I did at first was, well, there was like two steps simultaneously. One is start like one for one swapping out colors to the original. Like I knew that I wanted the purple to be equivalent to the white, and then this dark purple Fandango, I believe it is, to be equivalent to the red, and then everything else kind of fell into space. So then once I had like the combos, I knew that these three greens went together very well, so I wanted that to be in place of the blues. I knew I wanted to maintain the gray, so I kept that as a gray, and then I sort of just like picked colors that went together out of the bluer ones that I had, because I wanted this to shift more blue. Now, spoiler alert, I mean, you see this. I don't think this shifts more blue. I think it's kind of a greeny, bluey mix of things. It's actually quite busy. So anyway, that's how I chose the colors. I didn't put a tremendous amount into thought into it, just being like, swap these out, and then I made adjustments based on what I thought looked good. Just like groups together and like what I thought would be nice in my head. So that's where we ended up with that. I also was struggling about putting this color here just because it could have done with something else. And this color is repeated quite a bit over the motif. So that's this one and this one. But I think overall it was good to have that sort of rhythm and flow of it because they're all also staggered, right? They're not like on the same line at the same time. So I think that that made it a little bit more approachable. So that is what, I don't know, I decided on this. This is what we're going with. This is how it is. Am I in love with these colors right now? I think I'm at a point of the project where I was really excited about it and now I'm not, if that makes sense. Like you just sort of go through phases of loving and unloving. It's so much fun to play with all of the colors, but the combination, would I do it differently next time? Maybe. Maybe not. I'm not quite sure, but this is where we're at with everything. So let's compare. What I wanted to point out specifically is the purple replaces the white, which is an accent color, but it also was sort of like a resting point for your eyes because everything else in the other version, the main version, is colorful, and then there's the white, which just is not. So what I did here is I made these like bluey, these two stripes here, more blue based than the other ones. The other ones were quite warm, but the colors in terms of tone weren't too different from each other. Whereas this is based on more of a color of blue rather than the tonal values being similar. So there's a lot more contrast in this. And then Same thing with this green. Because I have this pickle juice color right here, I think that this pops a lot more than the blue does on the original. And so what that accomplishes is, I mean, just in general, more busyness and more pops. This pops where this tone and this tone on the original were a little bit more similar and sort of faded into the background. And then the warmer tones here were more of the show. But this is really, they go together, but they're a little bit more contrasty and dancing. So it's less, you know, these two lines and these two lines, like in the original, in terms of like color going on, and they relate, but like, you know, this is different than this, which is different than this, which is different than this, that sort of thing, if that makes any sense. So compared to the original, is it achieving the same thing in terms of color? No, it's not. And I knew that going in, and that's fine, because I think that this still looks quite beautiful, and this is where I wanted it to be. But once again, because I knew the color play would act differently in this sample than the original, as well as the shaping influencing this, I wanted to knit the body first, and then we figure out the rib. So let's go over some ribbing options, and I'll discuss yay, nay, what I liked, what I didn't like. First one is obvious. Let's go with the pink unicorn. I think the obvious choice would be, especially because it's rolling up, but down here you have little triangles for this color. So this color I think would be the obvious choice for all of the ribbing, because it relates to, you know, this, which was the white in the thing, and then this would be in the same position. So if we're doing a 1-for-1 swap, this is the one that you would go with. Another thing I wanted to do was shift it blue, because I know that the greens can potentially come out a bit stronger, and I look good in blue. I prefer a blue. So blue shifts were another thing I was looking at. I had two options essentially for that. One was this royal, and let's go and look at this. So if this was the cuffs and collar and hem, this royal would be quite prevalent. And I just didn't think that it went too much. It was like too bold for such a bold print, if that makes sense. Because the white on the original was like a calming color and it was more neutral, I was thinking of using the glass color as the ribbing, because it does something similar. Like this is the closest color I think I have to white. It is used quite a lot in these strips right there. And so it's a pretty prominent color that I could pull from, and it sort of grounds it, and then it made things a little bit more blue without having to look like so blue, so blue. So I think that this was a contender. I had a discussion with my art director, who's basically Mr. Does Knitting. He's fashionable, I am not. So I always ask him opinions about fashion, color, everything like that, if I need to do something different with shaping, just to get his perspective on things. So one thing he suggested was this dark, I believe it's the olive color for the base, which I don't mind, like if you put it at the bottom here, and I think it contrasts nice to this purple. And so that would really make like a good contrast of a thing, especially because I think, maybe, we'll have to see, but the sleeves will probably be something like this in the end. So the green is a good suggestion, and the dark one, I don't know, it just felt more right. In the end, do I think it goes with all of the colors so well? If I hold it up here, it's a little bit discordant. So probably not this olive green, but this is in contention. Another thing I was thinking, because I wanted the things to be neutral because the pattern is so busy, I was thinking, let's go with, it's either Pebble or French gray, the light gray. I also thought about the dark gray. The dark gray obviously was too dark, so out of the two grays, I thought that this light gray would go best with everything. And that would really make things neutral, but not really conflict with any colors, because I mean the gray basically goes with everything. So this was another contender, but in the end decided not to go with it. So what did I decide to go to? Because to me that those were all the obvious ones. And this one, believe it or not, surprised me. The answer is the Midnight. And so that is this very, very dark blue that we use just in a little bit of the accents on the side and this like weird contrasty bit, and put that there. And what this ends up doing in my mind, and what I think is good, is it sort of shifts it blue, but this is so dark that it's almost black, but not quite. So it doesn't really pull out the blues a whole lot, but I mean, I guess it does. But what this really does is this grounds the piece. This is so busy that having a grounded, solid thing to almost frame it with like a dark frame and then allow this to shine, I think that was the clear answer for the ribbing. And I would have never picked this one out because I wanted to get away from dark colors and I wanted to celebrate colors with this. But seeing this all knit up and then seeing this, I mean, it really just became clear in my mind that this could frame it and ground it and really make it so the texture and the pattern and all of this work shines. So that, in a nutshell, is how I came up with the ribbing color based on all of my weird, not weird, it's legitimate, but like all of my color theory and how I'm picking out things. So yeah, that's what we're going with. I'm going to hopefully finish the ribbing today, and then it's a long weekend. So I would at least like to weave in all these ends by the end of the weekend and perhaps cast on the front side. I am going to do the provisional cast on, even though I do know that this is going to be my ribbing color. I'm doing that because the knitting is knit bottom to top for this, but the ribbing for the back is going to be knit top down. And I mean, it looks the same. It's not that big of a deal, but in terms of like detail and how I want things to do, I want it to be the same direction of knitting. So bottom up for the color work of the front, and then the ribbing top down, just because I think that that will add a nicer finish. It will be cleaner, and then that way the sides will match up in terms of the 1x1 rib. It will automatically be like knit purl, knit purl, knit purl, as opposed to being like a stitch off and stuff like that. So and then also the cast off would be the same. So I would be using 1x1 ribbing. I'm not doing anything fancy because the original doesn't have anything fancy. 1x1 ribbing in this. I'll do a tubular bind off, which is beautiful. And then if I did a tubular cast on, I think it looks similar to the tubular bind off, but it's not. I can make it look the same. I don't want to put the effort in. I'm just going to do it the same way. And then when I do the cuffs, I'll start from the ribbing and go up and do that. So I think that that's the plan. This is also good because I got scraps of these, and I have 150 grams, I think, total of the Midnight, and I'm not using it a lot here. So if I use a lot for the rib, I'm safer at having not to buy any more yarn, because I'm not asking for any more yarn for this. But I would like to avoid buying it in additional skeins. So the fact that I have more of this is kind of to my advantage also. Was that a factor in it? A little bit, but not the deciding factor. So yes, that's what's happening with this monstrosity. And I think we're at a good spot. And I just wanted to share that and hope that it makes some sense to you and that was somewhat cohesive. I know people struggle with color quite a bit, and I'm not saying I'm a color guru. I definitely have hits and I definitely have misses, but you don't know until things are like knit up half the time anyway because of the interaction with the shape and the proportion, and it's hard to visualize sometimes. But that's a little bit of an insight as to what I did. So I hope you enjoy that, and I will catch you back at some time in the future, at some step in the future. Bye. Welcome back, everybody. It is June 22nd, which I think is like 2 months after my last recording. Life has been lifing. May, June, absolutely insane. I don't know what to do. 2 things happened. One, work was just crazy. It was insane for May and June. 2, I had a publication that I'm going to be in that's coming out in spring 26, and I had to knit, write, call a test, grade a pattern to 10 sizes in 3 weeks, and it was quite intense. So the Prada sweater took a back seat, and that's kind of where we are. I don't remember where we were. A couple things. The ribbing. Did I show you the ribbing? I went with the dark blue. I thought it helped the eye rest and let you focus more on the intarsia than the ribbing, and I think that that's really just what's needed because this was a lot of work and the ribbing takes 2 seconds. So that's what I did with that. I have shown this to Stephen West since this is all of his wool, like literally his wool that he like used on some other projects too. He said that he would have gone for the blue. So if you are one of those people that said, Jimmy, you need to do the dark blue or the cobalt blue, then you were right. Stephen West would have liked that too, although he was like, I knew you were going to do the dark one. Of course you were. So he was also right about me. But so that's what's happening with this. This is the front piece. No, this is the back piece, and it's all done. Everything's woven in. I think you've seen that before, but I have been working on the front piece now. So right now you really can't tell the difference between front and back. What has happened was I cast on with the provisional cast on like I did with the back, and then I knit up a little bit, probably I think to the end of these triangles, and then I picked up the ribbing and knit down so the fabric was a little bit more stable, but that way the ribbing direction matched the front and the back, and that it just was like a detail that I thought needed to be done, although I don't think anybody would really ever know the difference. So I've just been knitting on this. It's pretty much the same as before. This is the back currently. It is somewhat a mess, somewhat not. This time I am weaving in a little bit as I go. You can tell, well, especially like below these triangles, that I did a good job of weaving a lot of stuff in. I have started doing the shaping, so you can tell because it's all curly, curly, whirly, but I have the cast off for the underarm, and then I have the first 10 decrease rows-ish done, and that's where we are. So this will be going pretty fast. I'm hoping, and I think my calculations are good from before. Remember I did that whole experiment? I think I wrote enough notes to understand what I needed to do with this. What I've looked at makes sense thus far, so I hope that's the case. Now, I will say I didn't intend for this to go so long. What did we do? Start in March? I think we started in March. And it just, things happen. I still really enjoy the project. I have this and like one other thing on my needles at the moment. That will change soon. But I want to make some decent progress on this. Maybe by the end of June, finish up the front, because it will be, you know, it's getting smaller and smaller because it's a raglan, right? So I'm about like here-ish. It'll get smaller, it has the collar, and it's shorter than the back piece by 1.5 inches. So it's also just a lot less knitting. So I hope that that's what's going to happen. Lots of yarn. Yeah, anyway, that's my update for mid-June. I'll probably update you once I finish the front. I might be also doing the sleeves, and maybe I switch up the colors a little bit. I don't know. I've been looking at this for so long that I really don't like the colors anymore. I like the colors, but I don't know about the placement. I'm not really quite sure. So maybe I switch that up. Maybe I do something with the sleeves. That's for next podcast when I figure it out. I'm still a little bit brain fog from all of the tiredness and stuff that I've been doing. So I will do this. It's fun playing with colors, and I will get back to you later.
Do any of you remember that one song from Krayshawn in like the early 2000s about like designer brands? She wore like Mickey Mouse ears and was like on a car being like Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Fendi, Fendi, Prada. No? Yes? Anyway, here we are. It's July 1st. I have made some significant steps, and so I thought it was time to check in with you. We have the front that's done. This is a big deal because this is the second largest piece, and we're going for it now. I discussed on my podcast about the colors and how I'm feeling about them. We may or may not get into that, but one thing to note was my color calculations were incorrect. So I think I started at the right spot, but like the decrease rate was too much. And so the issue is when this part of it, so this is like going to coincide with the arm, and I think this part is maybe a little shorter than I wanted to have it, like a couple of rows. And so when I do my sleeve, I'm going to have to just like, actually I'm going to do my sleeve like I want it to be done, but then I'll have to like elongate this when I stitch it so it won't be the same rate so it matches up, if that makes sense. And so this line on the sleeve that it coordinates with is probably going to be slightly longer, but it will be fine. It's close enough. It works out. So I have this. The ends are all woven in. It's very exciting stuff. In general, I'm not loving the colors. It's been 3.5 months of pretty much solid knitting on this, and I'm like, I hated this. I think it's because I really wanted like a blue one, and just like that's not what happened. Westwool kindly gifted me this yarn, and I love it, and I'm very appreciative of it, and I made a color palette that I really enjoy with the yarn, but for some reason in my head I thought it was just like going to be bluer. And now that I've admitted that, I'm like, okay, it's not going to be the blue sweater that you wanted it to be, but it's still going to be beautiful and like a good color combination. And I think that one thing also is this band really gets me. I think it's too late to fix. I suppose I could duplicate stitch all of this stuff, but I'm just like, I don't know how I feel about it. I think that the balance of this color with the other spots that it shows up in is fine. It's just maybe the color combo, because this is it. And you can tell on here, this is like sea mist. And I think that this is aquamarine, maybe. But this looks greener in person than this, but when you have it on the sweater, I think it grays out a little bit. And I think it looks a little bit muddy. I'm not mad about the lack of contrast on this, but I think that it bothers me, and I need to step away because this is going to be a beautiful sweater. Will enjoy wearing it in the fall when it's not 1,000 degrees outside, and it will be fine. So those are my current thoughts, but I cranked out this pretty easily because, once you get decreasing, things go a lot faster. So that was nice. And then I did something. I decided on, and I may live to regret this, not because of mess, because Intarsha's just a mess and whatever, but like, it might be a lot to handle. But I decided on 2 at a time sleeves. So this one has a marker because this is the first one. And what I do is, knit along both and then knit back both. But I had to put the marker in because what I found out I was doing was I was knitting along and then back and forth and back and forth. And so like this would have a different row that I was on than this one. So I just need to be conscious of that. Now, I did check the pattern, and on the pictures of the one that they sold, and I was wondering if the sleeves were mirrored, meaning that like this would be the color order for like the right sleeve, and then the color order for the left sleeve would be this. That is not the case, which is much easier for me. It's the same thing. So like on the right side of the knitting is like green, and then the right side of the knitting here is green, and that's like back shoulder, front shoulder. So I think that will be nice and it will be easier. The 2 at a time sleeves, I wanted to double check because I did have to redo my math, if I'm going to be honest. I wanted the the cuff a little wider and my gauge was a little different as I was knitting. So I wanted to double check that with the sleeves. And I made everything's just like a little bigger. So I have to redo that, which for the decreases is going to be fine. But anyway, the idea is that I increase up to the same rate, bind off a little bit, and then go up. And then the stitches are going to be mirrored kind of like this so that it fits in with the shoulder. So the front I'm making lower than the back, and then the sleeve essentially has to like angle up in order to meet them and make like a continuous circle, if that makes sense. Anyway, that's what I'm doing, and that's what's happening. So I have the sleeves started. Hopefully this will go a lot faster. I mean, it will go slower because I'm doing 2 at a time. I have 2 increases done. I need to do a total of 14 increases. So this is going to be, this long-ish before I start decreasing, which is probably a lot of knitting with this thing. It will probably be, let's see. I think it will go, each one will go as wide as like a couple stitches into this last band because it starts with 4. And if I do 14 increases, I'll do 1 stitch of each of these colors probably, which I might leave out. I might just extend this and make it a little bit wider for the couple of rows that's going to be. Anyway, that's a future me problem. So, but that's it. Anyway, what's happening with the sleeves and what's happening with my Prada sweater. So I will be back probably halfway through the sleeves. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I'm excited to have this going and a big piece done. It's a lot of accomplishment. This is taking forever. I knew it would, but we're going to get it done, and I'm very excited to have that. I will catch you whenever the next update is. Bye. Today is July 28th, and I am done with this. Like, not actually done, but like emotionally over it. I don't like it anymore. It's taking too long, and all of it. Part of the reason why it's taking too long is because I decided to do the sleeves 2 at a time. So I have to knit, all across one, all across the other, all across one, all across the other, and it's almost the same amount of stitches as like one panel by the time that it's like big, and it's no. But that being said, I don't think that I would do the second sleeve if I didn't do them both at the same time. So that's really important. And then there would be a delay and the shaping might be different, and we don't want that all at the same time. So 2 at a time is the correct answer. And I've finally gotten through, let's say, some forced rest recently, and the fact that I bought another Intarsia project's worth of yarn that I'm going to cast on immediately on the same needles. So I wanted to get this like going, right? So I have finished on both sleeves the increases. So this is, well, I'll hold up one. So I have this for both sleeves, and then the ends are relatively woven in until about the top little triangle diamond part. But yeah, so like I've made some decent progress. I made some really good progress on this actually. I think I was down here last time I talked to you. I'm not quite sure. But we have bound off for the sleeves. So the way that a raglan sweater works is the sleeves, well, bottom up, the sleeves go up until the yoke, so under your armpit, and then they cut in, and then they go up. So it is going to be faster from here on out. And then there's going to be a little bit of shaping, which I have to recalculate because I decided to make the sleeves bigger than I originally did. So that and the fact that the depth of the front I think is a little less than I anticipated. I have to just recalculate. It shouldn't be that bad. I have, thankfully, kept markers in the front and the back. So this is the back, and you can see my counting markers. This is how I count. Every decrease is a light bulb stitch marker. For the back and the front, I did it with different colors because it helped me A, keep track, and B, keep me entertained. So that's the thing. So I know exactly how many decreases on what stitch, and it helps me visualize very quickly what I need to do. So we'll get to that when we get to that. Right now, it's just going to have to be decreasing for however long. I think I decrease every fourth row, so this will start to get faster and faster, and I'm looking forward and forward and forward to it. And yeah, especially when I get like, one stripe thing like done and then the next stripe, it will be good. So that is the update. Looking forward to getting this almost done, because once I finish the sleeves, I have to block it, I have to sew it up, which is going to take hour, two, something like that, and then collar. No big deal. We're like so close, and I need it done. I need this done by August. I'm saying this now because it just needs to be done. It just needs to be done. And then I'm going to shove it in a closet, and then I'm not going to look at it for like 2 months. And then I'll pull it out in the fall and be like, oh, this beautiful garment that I love and I spent so much time on and it looks fantastic. But for now, it's garbage. I hate it. It just needs to be done. So I will catch you sometime in August. All right, we're at a critical moment here. I have finished the sleeve and I finished another sleeve. But as you can tell, I have my needles back in and I'm ripping out. The problem is somehow I ended up with too large of a cast off. It didn't fit my math before. I don't know how I got there, but it should have really just been like these amount of stitches, or even less, but it was obviously way more. So I wove my ends up into about this point, so about here, and I did some math and I have the markers still in. So what I'm gonna do is rip back to about one row. This is the right side row, so the wrong side row after this, and then I'll decrease every other row as opposed to every fourth row, which is what I'm doing now. And then we will have the sleeves. So I was ambitious and I thought that I was done, but I did a quick try on and it sucked. So I'm not going to do this and then not have it fit and like maybe have a wonky collar after this. I just spent too much time and stuff. Good news is, because this is too wide, when I knit it back up again, it's going to be a lot shorter and it will be quicker knitting and it will use less yarn. So the yarn that I have is fine. I don't need any more yarn, which is good. I just need to rip out, I don't know, this much work, 30 rows, and maybe not cry while I do it, and then get back on it, but that's maybe a tomorrow thing. It is Sunday, August 3rd. I have not quit knitting. We had our little setback. I had to rip back until about, where was it? Here-ish? I don't know if this mic is picking anything up. Anyway, I had to rip back the sleeves and redo the sleeve cap shaping because it was down to about here, the neckline. And that was not gonna work. So meltdown avoided. I set myself up to success. Do I recommend frogging intarsia? No. You have to literally rip back like you knit it. So it's like rip back a color, untwist, rip back a color, untwist, rip back a color, untwist. Pain in the butt. I don't recommend it, but it needed to be done because I've spent so much time and so much energy on this stupid sweater that it needed to happen. So all I did was I was increasing every fourth row, which I don't know how my math was with that. And then for the last, I don't know, I did like 20 rows increasing every other row, something like that, plus the slope that I figured out earlier in the video. It about is the numbers that I had planned, but not exactly, and I don't know exactly what happened. I know that I increased the cuff width and then the sleeve opening, but then I don't know what happened. Anyway. So I've done it, I have finished the sleeves, the ends are woven in. I have done one more pin, a little bit better of a pinning. Obviously it's not like fully sewn or anything. And it fits. It fits. This is actually going to work. The collar is a bit big, but I mean once I start knitting on that and I seam it up. So like seaming it up will make this go a little higher, and then once I start knitting it, it will, bring it in a little bit. And also I'm going to knit, I don't know, 1.5 inches, 2 inches of collar, something like that. So this is going to work. We are almost done. The majority, with the exception of the collar, the knitting is done. Next steps, we are going to block this. I'm going to lay it out and probably not look at it for a week. I will use some of the ends of my bobbins to start sewing this up, and then
we have the collar and we're done. So this will be done within this month, probably, depending on drying time, week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that. So this is very exciting. Also, this fits. It's hard to capture in here without going too far out, but the sleeves are about right, and the length is also about right, so my math wasn't completely off, and I think I like this more than I thought I did. I don't know. It's such an emotional roller coaster, this thing. I don't know why. I think it's just because it's so much effort. It's not hard, it's just a lot of effort and some math and tons of knitting and yarn and all of that stuff. I'm glad for it to be done. But I'm really glad that this little try-on is making it work. Now, for the blocking, this is not going to grow, and let me show you why. But if we look at these floats, you can see that when I wove in my ends, that I wove it in on the color change lines for the most part. There are some exceptions, but what that does is essentially create like a reinforced seam. So this is not going to grow a lot. This will even out, but like the fabric won't really shift with blocking. It's just going to like be cooler, I guess is how to put it. So that is good to know. If you're seaming a sweater, it's going to grow a little bit less. Well, you block first and then you seam. But, I mean, this is really not going anywhere. So I think that this is pretty much the final size. Anyway, let's get this blocking today. I'll see if I can show some footage of that. And then let it chill for a bit. And so, almost done. So excited. All right, we've blocked everything. It is drying. I don't know if this is controversial or not, but I always just lay my knits out. I never pin them in place. I kind of just lay them out to be flat and like smush them down. So that's what's happening here. I will see you back for the sewing and the collar. We are done. It's great. I'm so excited about this. I thought for sure this would be a piece that I got in a big fight with, and then that would need to be put away for a month, and then I will come back to it and love it. But in the end, I think it's great. It is perfect. It fits amazingly, and I think it turned out so well. What have I done since you've last seen me? I have seamed everything up. I just used the leftover like bobbin colors for that, so I didn't like waste yarn, and it doesn't really matter what color it was. I used mattress stitch for that, and then I did this collar. The collar on the original was this like double knit thing. I don't know if you can see this very well. It's like a little bit of a double knitting and then 1x1 rib, and I did an Italian bind off, and those were the finishing parts. That was it, and it's all done. What I had questions on in the internets, why was I blocking this in separate pieces? And the answer is, when you knit something flat, you block it before you seam it up. Why? Because, as you know, when you block, things relax, things settle, things change. So if I were to seam this up, these seams aren't going anywhere. They're not going to flex. They're not going to change. They're not going to do anything. So if I did that and then the fabric changed, then I would have a really like bunchy, weird garment like at the seams, and that's not what we want. We want something that's nice and flat. I mean, I do have tension issues, but blocking really took care of a lot of it. I mean, they're still there, but that's fine. So I think that's one thing that I had. Another thing is people asked me why I was not scared that it was going to grow. And so there are a couple of reasons. It's one, the yarn I used, it's merino, but it's a non-superwash. It's just a regular one. I wouldn't say it's rustic, but it's just something that I know is predictable, and I always calculate based on the final gauge of a block swatch, not necessarily what I'm wearing, you know, especially because this, you don't need it. You can't try it on as you go because it's in different pieces unless you pin it together like I did. And even then, it doesn't give an accurate thing. Another reason why is because this is in tarsia. Those are two things that I had questions about, and those are my answers. If this were like a fisherman's rib, I probably would have knit it like up to here because those things grow. Same thing with like a brioche sweater, or if I had like a bunch of texture, then I knew that those would settle and go out. Same thing with cables. But for this, it's just stockinette. It's pretty fine. It's not a hard knit to make.
It is just time consuming because intarsia takes a while because you have to like drop a yarn, switch it over, drop a yarn, switch it over, drop a yarn. And that, I mean, it just takes a while, but it's fine. And I really enjoy the process of intarsia. And for something like this, I mean, it's totally worth it. I've been wanting to knit this since basically I've started knitting, and that was like 2021. And this is a Prada 2017 sweater. So it's taken me 4 years to get to this point, but we're here. It took, I think I started prepping in January for this. I think I cast on in March. You'll have to check the beginning of the video. And here we are at the end of August. And we're done. So it was a labor of love. Was it worth it? Yes. It was challenging. It's beautiful. It's fantastic. I actually probably will wear this more than I thought I would because I really like it. And I wasn't sure when I was knitting if I liked it or not. The big question was, could I recreate the Prada sweater? And the answer is yes. Is this an exact dupe of it? The answer also is no. And that is because I changed some things. The yarn was generously gifted to me by Stephen and Penelope. So this is West Wool Tandem, and it's a DK weight yarn. Looking at the pictures of the original one, it is a worsted weight yarn. So I had to rechart everything. Well, there was no chart, but I charted everything, and I had to make it so these widths of these columns essentially were the same as what I anticipated on the model and the pictures. I had 3 pictures that I went off of for this. So I made it as wide, which means changing the number of stitches and the gauge and stuff like that. Also, I made a decision earlier on that I wanted this greens and blues. So I did not do the same colors. So is it an exact dupe? No, I knew this going in. It's fine. I think it's close enough. Some of the other ones in the collection, they had like some yoke one with like different color palettes and stuff. So it's, I guess, fine to modify it. It's what I did. It's what I wanted. It's a custom made garment. I spent a lot of time on this. So that's what we're going with. In terms of fit, I think I really like a raglan. I was really like anti-raglan in general because there was a phase where everybody was knitting top-down raglans and the yoke depth was too big and they kept on like stretching out at the collar and stuff like this. But this being pieced, this being intarsia, it's really good. Like my math fits really well. And I'm quite happy with it. I mean, things lined up perfectly in terms of the pattern over here and the full repeats. I mean, the beauty of a custom-made garment is really just like fantastic what you can do if you really like plan it out. So, was this a success? Absolutely. I'm so excited about it and all of the things. If you missed some updates, you can look back on my Instagram and Ravelry, I think. Also, some of my YouTube videos have this in. I have also joined TikTok. I'm Jimmy Does Knitting on everything, so you can go and check that out. I am also going to start another big project, which will be the hardest project that I have ever knit. If you think this was challenging, this other one is going to be way more challenging, so watch me on my socials there. And yeah, give me compliments. This was a lot of work. This was a lot of work. It was a lot of emotional turmoil. It was a lot of ends. It was a lot of everything. I'm glad I did the sleeves 2 at a time because I never would have finished. I'm glad I sewed in the ends as I went in because I would have never finished. And I mean, it's really just a fantastic piece that I hope to hold and cherish for a long time and hopefully fit into also. But yeah. Thank you for being here on the journey with me. Please like and subscribe, and I will check you guys later. Goodbye.